Imagine a ghost in orbit, silently broadcasting into the void. 4 years, an abandoned satellite has been transmitting unknown signals, defying all logic. What if these aren't just random bursts, but a message or a warning from beyond our world? Join us as we journey into this unsettling cosmic enigma. At 3:47 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time on November 15, 2025, a radio telescope array in New Mexico detected something that shouldn't exist. A signal, clean, deliberate, structured, coming from an object that had been silent for over a decade. The technician on duty initially dismissed it as equipment error. Then he checked the coordinates. Then he checked them again. Then he called his supervisor, his hands shaking as he held the printout. The source was LES-5, a military communications satellite launched in 1967 and officially decommissioned in 1972. For 53 years, it had been nothing more than space debris, a dead hunk of metal and circuitry tumbling through low Earth orbit at 17,000 miles per hour. No power source, no active systems, no reason to transmit anything. But it was transmitting. And as of today, November 27, 2025, the signal is getting stronger. LES-5 was part of the Lincoln Experimental Satellite Program, a series of military communications tests during the height of the Cold War. Its mission was straightforward: relay encrypted military communications between ground stations. The technology was primitive by today's standards: vacuum tubes, analog circuitry, solar panels that degraded decades ago. When the satellite completed its mission parameters in 1972, it was powered down and abandoned. Standard procedure for the era. Space was less crowded then. No one worried about defunct satellites cluttering the orbital lanes. The satellite was 8 feet long, weighed 450 pounds, and looked like an oversized trash can wrapped in foil and solar panels. It contained no advanced AI, no experimental technology, nothing that could account for autonomous operation. Once its systems were shut down and its batteries depleted, it should have been permanently silent. An inert object drifting through the void, slowly degrading under solar radiation and micrometeorite impacts. Space agencies tracked it, of course. Everything in orbit gets tracked. Collision avoidance is critical when objects are moving at orbital velocities. But LES-5 was in a stable orbit, not threatening any active satellites or the International Space Station. It was catalog number 02460 in the Space Surveillance Network database. Just another piece of humanity's orbital graveyard. The discovery of its transmission came almost by accident. Dr. Sarah Chin, an astronomer at the New Mexico Institute of Mining and Technology, was calibrating the Very Large Array Radio Telescope for an unrelated project studying pulsar emissions. During a routine system check, one of her graduate students noticed an unexpected signal in a frequency band they weren't even supposed to be monitoring. At first, we thought it was interference from a nearby satellite, Dr. Chin explained in a hastily arranged press conference. But when we triangulated the source, we got coordinates that matched a defunct Cold War satellite. We verified it 3 times, 4 times. Then we contacted NORAD to confirm the object's position. It matched perfectly. The signal itself was unlike anything in the standard catalog of space transmissions. It operated on a frequency that LES-5's original systems could theoretically produce, but with characteristics that seemed impossible for 1960s technology. The modulation was complex. Too complex. The pattern repeated every 47 minutes, but with subtle variations that suggested adaptation. If I had to describe it, said Dr. Chin, her professional composure barely masking obvious unease, I'd say it sounds purposeful, structured, like someone trying to tune an instrument, adjusting until they get it right. The audio recording of the signal, when processed into human audible frequencies, is deeply unsettling. It begins as a low hum, almost subsonic, that slowly rises in pitch. Then comes a series of rapid clicks. Some researchers describe them as mechanical, others as organic. The clicks form patterns that almost sound like language, like syllables of words in no known tongue. Then the signal drops back to that low hum before starting the cycle again. But here's what makes it truly disturbing. The signal is getting stronger. not louder, stronger. As if whatever is generating it is drawing more power, building capacity. On November 15th, when first detected, the signal strength registered at minus 142 dBm. By November 20th, it had increased to minus 138 dBm. Today, November 27th, it's at minus 134 dBm. This shouldn't be possible. There is no power source on that satellite. The solar panels degraded decades ago. The backup batteries would have been depleted within months of decommissioning. Even if some exotic long-life power source had been secretly installed, and there's no evidence or reason for that, it would be weaker after 53 years, not stronger. Yet the signal grows. And as it grows, its complexity increases. Early recordings show a relatively simple pattern. Recent recordings reveal what can only be described as structure. Information density. As if the transmission is learning to speak, finding its voice after decades of silence. Space agencies worldwide are now tracking LES-5 continuously. The satellite's physical orbit remains predictable and stable, but something about it has fundamentally changed. Thermal imaging from ground-based telescopes shows no unusual heat signature. Radar imaging shows no structural changes. From the outside, it appears exactly as it should, a dead satellite tumbling through space. But it's talking, speaking in a language of electromagnetic waves, broadcasting into the void or perhaps down to Earth, a message that began 12 days ago and has been growing steadily stronger every day. Amateur radio enthusiasts have picked up the signal now. It's becoming easier to detect as it strengthens. Online forums are filled with recordings, analyses, theories. Some claim to hear words in the noise. Others insist they found mathematical patterns in the clicks. A few have reported something more disturbing, that after listening to extended recordings of the signal, they experience unusual dreams. Dreams of darkness, dreams of watching, dreams of something vast and patient waiting. Dr. Chen's team has been working around the clock, analyzing every aspect of the transmission. They've brought in cryptographers, linguists, computer scientists, even musicologists to examine the patterns. No one can explain it. More troubling, no one can explain how it's possible. We're dealing with something that violates our understanding of how these systems work, Dr. Chen admitted in a private interview, her professional detachment finally cracking. A satellite that's been dead for 53 years doesn't just start broadcasting. It doesn't grow stronger. It doesn't evolve its signal. This is unprecedented. And I'll be honest, it's frightening. Tomorrow the signal will be stronger still. Next week, stronger yet. The pattern continues, building towards something. A threshold perhaps. A moment when whatever is using that satellite will have enough power, enough clarity, enough strength to complete its transmission. The question is, what happens when it does? And perhaps more importantly, who or what is listening? The signal from LES-5 doesn't behave like normal radio transmissions. Dr. Marcus Webb, a communications specialist with 40 years of experience in satellite technology, described it as wrong in ways that make my engineering degree feel useless. The frequency is 237 MHz, within the UHF band that LES-5's transponders could theoretically access. But the modulation scheme is something else entirely. It's not frequency modulation, not amplitude modulation, not any of the standard encoding methods used in 1960s satellite communications. Instead, the signal employs what appears to be a form of adaptive phase modulation that wasn't developed until the late 1990s, and even then requires digital processing capabilities far beyond what LES-5 possessed. Imagine finding a telegraph from 1850 transmitting 4K video, Webb explained. That's the level of impossibility we're dealing with. The hardware physically cannot do what we're observing. The signal intelligence team at the National Security Agency has been quietly analyzing the transmission since its discovery. While they refuse to make official statements, a leaked internal memo reveals their conclusions are deeply disturbing. The signal exhibits characteristics consistent with intelligent design. Pattern analysis suggests informational content structured in a hierarchical format. However, decryption attempts have been unsuccessful. The encoding scheme appears to be non-human in origin. That last sentence has sent shockwaves through the scientific community. Non-human in origin. Not alien necessarily. The NSA is careful to avoid that word, but not consistent with any human-designed communication system. Amateur cryptographers and signal processing enthusiasts have been working independently, downloading recordings of the transmission and running their own analyses. One group, calling themselves the LES-5 Investigation Collective, claims to have found repeating mathematical constants embedded in the signal timing. What? Euler's number. The golden ratio. As if whatever is transmitting is first establishing common mathematical ground. It's like the beginning of a conversation, said Jennifer Park, a mathematics professor who's been volunteering her time with the collective. You don't start speaking a foreign language without first establishing that you're both using numbers the same way. Mathematics is universal. If you're trying to communicate with someone who doesn't share your language or culture, you start with math. But why would a 1960s military satellite need to establish mathematical communication protocols? Unless something else is using it, something that didn't design it, something that's adapting its hardware for purposes never intended. The initial theories were naturally terrestrial. Could the satellite systems have been reactivated by a solar flare? Possible, but the timing doesn't match any recent solar activity. Could cosmic radiation have caused some kind of short circuit that mimicked a transmission? The signal is too regular, too structured. Could it be interference from another satellite? Triangulation definitively places the source at LES-5's exact orbital coordinates. Could it be a hack? This theory gained traction initially. Perhaps a nation-state with advanced space capabilities had found a way to commandeer the defunct satellite for covert communications. But the technical barriers are insurmountable. LES-5 has no onboard computer to hack. Its systems are analog. There's no wireless way to upload code or commands. You'd need to physically dock with it and install new hardware. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory ran simulations. Could debris impact have somehow caused systems to short-circuit in a way that produced radio emissions? The energy requirements don't work. Could residual charge in ancient capacitors have spontaneously organized into transmitting patterns? One physicist calculated the odds at 10 to the power of 45 against. More unlikely than all the atoms in the universe spontaneously arranging themselves into a working iPhone. Every mundane explanation fails. Every conventional theory collapses under scrutiny. What remains is uncomfortable. The signal is real, it's strengthening, and it shouldn't exist. Dr. Chen's team has been focusing on the signal's evolution. Over the 12 days since discovery, the transmission has become progressively more complex. Early recordings show relatively simple pulse patterns. Recent recordings reveal what can only be described as nested information structures. Signals within signals, each layer more sophisticated than the last. It's learning, Dr. Chen said during an emergency symposium of radio astronomers. Or adapting. The signal is responding to something, changing based on some input we can't identify. It's becoming more efficient, more refined. Like it's practicing. The comparison several researchers have made is to whale songs. Humpback whales produce complex vocalizations that evolve over time, with populations sharing and modifying songs in ways that suggest cultural transmission. But whales have brains. LES-5 is a dead satellite. What could be learning? What could be practicing? One possibility that few will voice publicly but many discuss privately. What if LES-5 isn't the origin of the signal but rather a relay? What if something else is transmitting through it, using its hardware as a conduit? The satellite occupies an orbital position with clear lines of sight to most of Earth's surface. An ideal position for broadcasting. But broadcasting from where? The signal's frequency and modulation would allow it to penetrate Earth's atmosphere with minimal degradation. It could be received by simple equipment worldwide. As it grows stronger, it will become detectable to increasingly basic receivers. Soon, anyone with a shortwave radio and the right antenna configuration will be able to listen. And what exactly would they be hearing? That's where the analysis becomes genuinely disturbing. When the signal is processed through various filtering and decoding algorithms, Patterns emerge that resemble language structures. Syntax, grammar. Repeated sequences that function like words or phrases. But the vocabulary is vast, far larger than any human language. And the concepts being expressed, to the extent they can be interpreted at all, don't map to human experience. One NSA linguist, speaking anonymously, described their impression. It's like listening to someone describe colors that don't exist. Mathematical concepts that violate our understanding of mathematics. Spatial relationships in more dimensions than we can perceive. Either it's sophisticated nonsense or it's communication from something with a fundamentally different way of experiencing reality. The signal transmitted yesterday included a new element. 4:47 seconds, the complex modulation simplified into a pure tone at 528 Hz. Then it resumed its complex pattern, but the entire structure had shifted, reorganized, as if the pure tone was a delimiter separating one complete thought from the next. Some researchers celebrated this as progress, clear evidence of structure, of intentional formatting. Others were less optimistic. It finished saying something, one wrote in an internal memo. It completed one part of its message. Now it's starting the next part. The question is, how many parts are there? What happens when it finishes the complete transmission? And always, underneath every theory and analysis, the fundamental question persists. What is using a dead satellite to speak? And why, after 53 years of silence, has it chosen to speak now? This isn't the first time humanity has heard unexplained signals from space. In 1977, astronomer Jerry Emmon detected a powerful narrowband radio signal while working on the SETI project. It lasted 72 seconds, appeared to come from the direction of Sagittarius, and was so unusual that Emmon circled it on the printout and wrote, "Wow," in the margin. The wow signal has never been explained or repeated. In 2019, astronomers detected a series of fast radio bursts from a galaxy 500 million light-years away. These bursts repeated on a 16-day cycle, suggesting something other than random natural phenomena. No explanation has been confirmed. And throughout the Cold War, both American and Soviet listening stations occasionally detected signals that matched no known source. Transmissions that appeared to come from empty regions of space, too structured to be natural, too strange to be terrestrial. But LES-5 is different. Those other signals were distant, unreachable, impossible to investigate directly. LES-5 is in low Earth orbit. We put it there. We built it. We know every component, every circuit, every capability it was designed to have. Which makes the current situation not mysterious in a romantic sense, but terrifying in a concrete one. Because if something can commandeer a primitive satellite we thought we understood completely, what else might it be using? The parallels to the Black Knight satellite legend are unavoidable, and conspiracy theorists have seized on this connection with predictable enthusiasm. The Black Knight legend claims an alien satellite has been orbiting Earth for 13,000 years, watching humanity, waiting. The legend is based on misidentifications, thermal blankets lost during spacewalks, and a healthy dose of wishful thinking. But the legend persists because it taps into a deep unease, the idea that we're being watched from above. That something is up there, beyond our control, observing our development, perhaps reporting to something even further away. It's the cosmic version of feeling eyes on you in a dark room. LES-5 gives that anxiety a focal point, a specific object, specific coordinates, something real and trackable that is behaving in ways it shouldn't. The conspiracy theories write themselves. Was LES-5 always something more than a communication satellite? Was its decommissioning a cover story? Is it transmitting to something else, or receiving instructions from something we can't detect? The rational mind rejects these narratives. But the rational mind also can't explain a dead satellite broadcasting signals that grow stronger daily, using encoding methods that didn't exist when it was built, transmitting information structured like language from a civilization we don't recognize. Dr. Chin has started examining historical records more carefully, looking for any precedent, any clue that might illuminate the current mystery. She discovered something unsettling in archived mission logs from LES-5's operational period. Several entries from 1971 and 1972, months before the satellite was officially decommissioned, mention anomalous signal characteristics and unexplained transmission patterns during off-peak hours. The entries are terse, filed by night shift technicians, dismissed by supervisors as equipment quirks or operator error. But reading them now with the context of current events, they take on sinister overtones. One entry from October 1971 reads, "Satellite initiated transmission sequence without ground command at 2:17 Greenwich Mean Time. Duration, 4 minutes 23 seconds. Content unclear. Systems check normal. Recommend monitoring." There's no follow-up in the records. No investigation. The anomaly was noted and forgotten. But what if LES-5 has been trying to transmit for decades? What if the first attempt was in 1971, but the power wasn't sufficient? What if it's been building capacity slowly over 53 years until finally achieving enough strength to be detected? This timeline is deeply disturbing because it suggests intention, patience, planning, a slow accumulation of energy or capability working toward a specific goal. Not a malfunction, not a random occurrence, something deliberate. Dr. Thomas Merritt, a physicist specializing in space environment effects, has proposed a theory that's gained traction in certain circles, though it raises more questions than it answers. He suggests that LES-5 might have been struck by something, not debris but something exotic. Perhaps a small amount of dark matter. Perhaps a microsingularity passing through the solar system. Something that embedded itself in the satellite structure and has been slowly affecting its systems at a quantum level. Think of it as an infection, Merritt explained in a lecture that's since gone viral online. Not biological but physical. Something that's been restructuring the satellite's matter at an atomic level, reorganizing its circuits, creating new pathways. It would be incredibly slow, imperceptible until it reached a critical threshold. And now we're seeing the results. It's an elegant theory that fits the known facts, but it raises a terrifying question. If something can infect a satellite and repurpose it, what else might it infect? Other satellites? Space stations? Equipment on Earth? The more paranoid analysts have started cataloging other satellites that have exhibited unusual behavior over the decades. A weather satellite that briefly transmitted on frequencies it wasn't designed to use. A GPS satellite that had a 48-hour period of unexplained signal degradation. A Chinese communications platform that went silent for 3 weeks, then resumed operation with no explanation. Are these normal malfunctions, the expected failures of complex technology operating in harsh environments? Or are they signs of something broader, a pattern of something systematically accessing our orbital infrastructure, learning our systems, preparing for something? The what-if scenarios have become impossible to ignore. What if this isn't a mystery to be solved but a warning to be heeded? What if the strengthening signal isn't trying to communicate with us but rather calling to something else, sending coordinates, reporting that humanity has reached a certain technological threshold? What if we're not the intended recipients of this message at all, but merely the subject being discussed? The signal continues. Every day stronger. Every day more complex. Dr. Chen's team has projected the growth curve forward. At the current rate of increase, the signal will be detectable by basic consumer radio equipment within 3 weeks. Within 6 weeks, it will be powerful enough to potentially interfere with other satellite communications. And nobody knows how to stop it. Nobody knows what happens when it reaches full strength. Nobody knows what it's building toward. All we know is that something impossible is happening above our heads, in the darkness of orbit, and we have no choice but to watch and listen as a ghost in space finds its voice and begins to speak. The question is, once it finishes speaking, will it listen? And what will respond? Tracking the physical source of the signal within LES-5 has become a top priority for multiple space agencies. The satellite is small, relatively primitive, and its internal layout is thoroughly documented. Yet pinpointing exactly which component is generating the transmission has proven maddeningly difficult. Ground-based radio telescopes can determine the signal originates from LES-5's location, but can't resolve details finer than the satellite's overall dimensions. It's like knowing a phone call is coming from inside a specific house but not knowing which room. The European Space Agency has repurposed one of their Earth observation satellites, equipped with high-resolution imaging, to photograph LES-5 during close passes. The images are disturbing in their normalcy. The satellite looks exactly as it should, aged, pitted with micrometeorite impacts, its solar panels clearly degraded, its antenna intact. There's no visible damage, no obvious external modification. Whatever is happening inside that 450-pound cylinder of metal and dead circuitry. Dr. Pavel Christov, an aerospace engineer who worked on satellite collision avoidance systems, has proposed using the International Space Station's Canadarm2 robotic system to capture LES-5 and bring it to the ISS for direct examination. "We have the capability," he argued at a hastily convened NASA briefing. "The satellite's orbit brings it within potential reach. We could grapple it, bring it to the station, and conduct a detailed physical investigation." The proposal was immediately classified, then rejected. The official reason given was safety protocols. Bringing an object of unknown condition to the ISS poses contamination and mechanical risks. The unofficial reason, whispered in corridors and leaked to journalists, is more unsettling. Nobody knows what would happen if we interfered with whatever is using the satellite. What if touching it stops the signal? What if it makes the signal stronger? What if it transmits something different when approached? What if the entity, and people are starting to use that word, entity, what if it responds to interference in ways we can't predict? The challenges of space investigation are immense even under normal circumstances. The Hubble Space Telescope required 5 servicing missions, each costing hundreds of millions of dollars, to maintain and upgrade. LES-5 is in a different orbital plane than the ISS, meaning any rendezvous mission would require significant fuel and complex orbital mechanics. More problematic is timing. Each day the signal grows stronger, the situation feels more urgent. But mounting a space mission takes months of planning, training, and preparation. By the time a crew could be ready to investigate LES-5, the signal may have evolved beyond our current understanding, or completed whatever it's building toward. Private space companies have expressed interest. SpaceX CEO briefly mentioned the possibility of a rapid response mission, using a Dragon capsule. Blue Origin has the technical capability for a similar approach. But government space agencies have been reluctant to involve private entities in what has increasingly become a matter of national and international security. Because there's another concern, rarely voiced publicly but discussed extensively in classified briefings. What if this is a weapon? What if the signal, once it reaches sufficient strength, does something other than communicate? What if it's designed to disrupt Earth's electronic infrastructure, disable satellites, interfere with power grids? The signal's frequency and growing power level would allow it to penetrate electronic systems. Modern semiconductors are susceptible to electromagnetic interference. If LES-5's transmission reaches sufficient strength, it could potentially affect everything from smartphones to aviation systems. A joint task force, including personnel from NASA, the U.S. Space Force, ESA, and Roscosmos, has been quietly assembled. Their mission: develop contingency plans for neutralizing LES-5 if it becomes necessary. Options under consideration include kinetic impact, using a missile or another satellite to physically destroy LES-5. This would create significant debris in an already crowded orbit, but would definitely stop the transmission. Electromagnetic pulse, detonating a device that would overwhelm LES-5 systems with an EMP blast. Risky as it could affect other satellites in the vicinity. Capture and containment, the Canadarm2 proposal, but with modifications to place LES-5 inside a Faraday cage that would block the transmission. Do nothing. Monitor and study, accepting that we might not be able to stop whatever is happening. Each option has technical challenges and geopolitical implications. Destroying the satellite could be interpreted as an act of aggression by other nations. Capturing it raises questions of ownership and control. LES-5 is American property, but the signal's implications are global. Meanwhile, amateur space trackers have been monitoring LES-5 with increasing sophistication. One group in Australia has rigged a motorized telescope with a software-defined radio receiver, allowing them to simultaneously image the satellite and record the signal during overhead passes. Their data shows something unexpected. The signal strength varies slightly depending on LES-5's orbital position. When the satellite passes over the Pacific Ocean, particularly the deep regions far from any landmass, the signal is measurably stronger. When it passes over major population centers, the signal is slightly weaker, as if it's drawing power from somewhere in the ocean, or as if it's transmitting toward the ocean, with the signal captured by ground stations being merely spillover. This discovery has spawned a new theory. What if LES-5 isn't the origin point at all, but rather a relay? What if something in Earth's oceans, something in the deep trenches where we've explored less than we've explored the surface of Mars? What if something down there is communicating through the satellite? The notion of something in Earth's oceans seems more plausible to some researchers than extraterrestrial origins. We know so little about the deep ocean. We know strange things live there, organisms that survive in conditions that would kill almost anything else, that have evolved in complete isolation, that possess sensory capabilities we barely understand. Could something down there have developed intelligence? Could it have learned to manipulate electromagnetic signals? Could it be using a human satellite as a communication tool because it cannot reach the surface itself? Or is the ocean connection a coincidence, a pattern that human minds are imposing on random data because we're desperate for any explanation that doesn't involve the terrifying vastness of space? Future missions are being planned, though none will launch soon enough to satisfy the growing urgency. A proposed satellite equipped with high-gain antennas and advanced signal processing might be able to triangulate the transmission's exact internal source. A probe with robotic manipulators could potentially dock with LES-5 and conduct non-destructive testing. But all of this takes time, money, political will, technical innovation, and the signal doesn't wait. It grows stronger every day, indifferent to human confusion, unconcerned with our inability to explain it. Above our heads, in the silence of orbit, something is speaking with increasing volume. And we still don't know if we should be trying to answer or trying to make it stop. If the signal from LES-5 is indeed intentional communication from a non-human intelligence, the implications cascade through every aspect of how we understand our place in the universe. We would no longer be alone. That simple fact, which humanity has speculated about since first looking at the stars, would be confirmed. But the confirmation would come in the most unsettling possible way, not from a distant galaxy, not from the vastness of space we can't reach, but from right above us. From an object we put there ourselves. From something that's been watching, waiting, using our own technology against us, or perhaps simply to speak to us. Professor Elena Vasquez, a philosopher specializing in existential risk at Oxford University, has been writing about the implications. We've always imagined first contact happening on our terms, she explained in a widely shared essay. We imagined sending messages into space and receiving replies. We imagined understanding and cooperation. We never imagined something hijacking our discarded technology and forcing us to listen. The psychological impact would be profound. Every satellite becomes suspect. Every unexplained technical glitch becomes potentially meaningful. The comfortable boundary between what's ours and what's other dissolves. If something can use LES-5, what's preventing it from using any of the thousands of other satellites orbiting Earth? What's preventing it from reaching further, touching ground-based systems, accessing networks? The signal's growing strength suggests escalation. Whatever is transmitting is building toward something. A crescendo, a completion, a moment when the message will be fully formed and delivered. Every projection suggests that moment is approaching. Within weeks, perhaps days, the signal will reach its intended strength. And then what? Does it stop? Does it change? Does something respond? Dr. Chin's team has made one more disturbing discovery. When they processed the most recent recordings through advanced audio analysis software, they detected something beneath the obvious signal. A subsonic component. Frequencies below human hearing, but powerful enough to potentially affect biological systems if someone was directly exposed. Studies have shown that infrasound, sound below 20 Hz, can cause feelings of unease, dread, even hallucinations. Some researchers believe haunted house experiences might be caused by infrasound produced by creaky buildings. The signal from LES-5 includes components in exactly this range, growing stronger along with the main transmission. It's possible, Dr. Chin said carefully, that once the signal reaches sufficient strength, it won't just be detectable by radio equipment. It might be perceptible directly. People might feel it. The physiological effects could be significant. Imagine a transmission from space that doesn't require technology to receive. A signal that speaks directly to human neurology, bypassing our conscious filters, affecting us at a biological level. The implications range from profound to terrifying, depending on intent. Is it trying to communicate with our minds directly? Is it attempting to alter human consciousness? Or is the subsonic component merely a side effect, an unintended consequence of the transmission's characteristics? Online communities have exploded with speculation, theories, and claimed experiences. Some people report feeling drawn to look at the sky at specific times. Others describe dreams of stars and signals, of vast intelligence observing from impossible distances. Psychologists dismiss these as suggestion and expectation, people experiencing what they think they should experience given the circumstances. But the reports are numerous, and they're increasing. Religious leaders have begun weighing in. Some see the signal as divine communication, proof of higher powers. Others view it as demonic, a force of darkness making itself known. Most major religious institutions have issued statements urging calm, perspective, and continued faith in human understanding. But faith in human understanding is precisely what's being challenged. Everything we thought we knew about our technological infrastructure, about our control of orbital space, about our place in the cosmos, all of it is being questioned by a dead satellite that refuses to stay dead. The geopolitical implications are equally profound. If something non-human is communicating through a defunct American satellite, does that make it an American issue? An international one? Does the United Nations claim authority? Does anyone? Several nations have quietly begun enhanced monitoring of their own defunct satellites. China, Russia, the European Space Agency, everyone with objects in orbit is checking, verifying, looking for similar anomalies. So far, LES-5 appears unique, but so far offers little comfort. The most disturbing theory, and the one that keeps many researchers awake at night, is that this isn't communication at all, but a test, a probe, something measuring our responses, our capabilities, our readiness, testing whether we notice, testing how we react, gathering data before something larger happens. If that's true, we're being evaluated, studied, and we have no idea what criteria are being used, what standards we're being measured against, or what happens when the evaluation concludes. Yesterday, the signal changed again. For 3 minutes, the complex modulation dropped away entirely, replaced by a simple repeating pattern. 3 short pulses, 3 long pulses, 3 short pulses. The international distress signal. Then the complex transmission resumed, but different, reorganized, as if incorporating a response, acknowledging that we recognize the reference. It knows we're listening. It knows we understand at least some of what it's trying to communicate, and it's adjusting its message accordingly. Dr. Chin held a press conference this morning. She looked exhausted, frightened, but determined. We need to accept, she said, that we're part of something larger than we imagined. Whatever is using LES-5 to communicate has been patient for decades. It's been careful. It's been deliberate. And now it's ready to be heard. We have a choice. We can listen and try to understand. Or we can destroy LES-5 and silence the transmission. But I don't think silence will solve anything. If something can use one satellite, it can use others. If it wanted to harm us, it's had decades of opportunity. Instead, it's trying to speak. I think we should listen. Her words have ignited furious debate. Some agree, how can we turn away from potential first contact? Others argue for immediate destruction of LES-5, Whatever is happening is wrong, unnatural, threatening. But the decision may already be out of human hands. Because this morning, 3 other defunct satellites began transmitting. Different frequencies, different orbital positions, but the same underlying pattern as LES 5. The same growing strength. The same evolution towards something. Whatever is speaking isn't using just one satellite anymore. It's building a network, creating a chorus. And soon, very soon, the message will be complete. We'll all hear it then. Whatever is speaking isn't using just one satellite anymore. It's building a network, creating a chorus. And soon, very soon, the message will be complete. We'll all hear it then. And when it happened, when the moment finally arrived, it wasn't dramatic. No blinding light. No physical shockwave. No catastrophic technological failure. It began with silence. Across observatories, research labs, amateur radio stations, and classified monitoring facilities, the signal from LES 5 suddenly flatlined. Not faded. Not weakened. Stopped. The other 3 satellites went silent too. For nearly 6 full minutes, the sky was quiet. Astronomers thought their equipment had failed. Engineers checked power systems. Global monitoring networks scrambled to diagnose what was happening. Nothing made sense. Then every satellite, the old ones, the dead ones, even 2 that had never transmitted before, woke up at the same time. Not one by one. All at once. More than 60 defunct satellites across multiple orbits began broadcasting simultaneously on a synchronized frequency band. A band that shouldn't exist, one that no human system had ever used. The signal was unlike anything Dr. Chen's team or NASA or ESA had ever encountered. Not random. Not noise. Music. A rising harmonic tone, layered, structured, complex. Something like a choir and a machine and a storm, all woven together. Sound with shape. Sound with intention. And underneath it, the same infrasound component. Only stronger. Much stronger. People across the world felt it before they heard anything. A moment of weight in the chest. A sudden clarity. Some described it as a presence behind their thoughts. Others as a pressure, like someone gently placing their hand on the back of their skull. Then the real message began. Every active device capable of receiving electromagnetic signals, phones, radios, satellite dishes, even old analog televisions stored in basements, flickered and displayed the same thing. A simple pattern. 3 short pulses. 3 long pulses. 3 short. Then a new sequence, repeating, growing more insistent. Not Morse. Not binary. Not anything we recognized. But people felt it. As the tones shifted, the infrasound deepened. A wave of emotion swept through millions. An overwhelming sense of anticipation, like standing at the edge of something vast and irreversible. Around the world, people reported the same sensation. Someone is speaking. Someone is waiting. Someone is asking a question. In the command centers of the world space agencies, panic gave way to realization. As the signal stabilized, researchers finally understood the structure. The message wasn't words. It wasn't a warning. It wasn't an introduction. It was a request. A prompt. A test. The satellites weren't just broadcasting, they were listening. The signal stabilized into a repeating pattern shaped around the natural resonant frequencies of the human brain. Dr. Chen's team confirmed it. The transmission was designed not just to be heard, but to be answered. And then a new layer emerged. A second signal riding beneath the first, faint but growing. A shape inside the noise. Not language in the traditional sense, but something closer to intention. A conceptual outline forming inside millions of minds. The message translated loosely to, "We are here. We are close. Respond." World leaders convened emergency sessions. Debate raged. Religious institutions urged caution. Scientists pleaded for structured research. But the decision never made it to governments. Humanity made the decision on its own. Because somewhere, no one knows where it originated or who first sent it, a reply was transmitted. A simple human reply, amplified millions of times as individuals, groups, and networks echoed it without coordination, without planning, without hesitation. 3 short pulses. 3 long. 3 short. We answered, and the moment we did, something changed. The harmonic signal ceased. The satellites fell silent again. The pressure in the air dissipated. For 10 seconds, nothing happened at all. Then one final transmission came through, short, sharp, clear. No infrasound, no complexity, just a single modulated burst. Dr. Chen replayed it dozens of times, analyzing the waveform until her face went white. The burst wasn't random. It was a compressed data block. Inside it was a set of coordinates, not orbital coordinates, not deep space coordinates, Earth coordinates, a location, a date, and a time. The time is less than a week from now. The coordinates point to a region of Earth that no one expected. And attached to the coordinates, embedded deep in the data, was a final message, this time unmistakably structured. Not a warning, not an introduction, a statement. We received you. Prepare. The moment the decoding was published, every major news outlet in the world went into crisis mode. Governments scrambled. Military forces mobilized. Millions looked to the sky in fear, in hope, in disbelief. And now the countdown ticks, second by second, toward the moment that the message foretold. Whatever used Elias 5 and awakened the dead satellites, whatever has been watching us through our own technology, whatever reached out from the void, is coming. And this time, we will all hear it.